Have you ever watched a child say something they thought no one would understand, only to realize they'd been heard all along? That moment of panic mixed with surprise is unforgettable. This is the story of a 10-year-old boy who learned an invaluable lesson about respect, and the kind housekeeper who taught it to him in the most unexpected way. 10-year-old Eli Goldstein watched from the top of the stairs as his mother led a new woman through their Beverly Hills home. It was the third housekeeper this year. The others had quit after his mother's impossible standards drove them away. Eli felt a little bad about that, but mostly he was just bored. Adults came and went in his world like background characters. The new housekeeper's name was Maria. She looked to be in her early 30s, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, and warm brown eyes that crinkled when she smiled. She wore simple clothes and carried herself with quiet dignity, as Eli's mother, Rachel, rattled off an extensive list of cleaning expectations. "Eli, come down here and meet Maria," Rachel called up the stairs. Eli descended slowly, his backpack still slung over one shoulder from school. He gave Maria a quick glance and a half wave. "Hi, hello, Eli," Maria said in slightly accented English. "It's nice to meet you. She'll be here Monday through Friday," Rachel explained to Eli. "She'll prepare your after-school snack and make sure you start your homework." "Maria, Eli is a good boy but easily distracted. Make sure he stays focused." Maria nodded. "Of course, Mrs. Goldstein." After the tour, Eli went to his room and pulled out his phone to video chat with his best friend David, who lived 2 houses down. David's family was also Jewish, also wealthy, and the boys had grown up together like brothers. "New housekeeper?" David asked in Hebrew, a language both boys spoke fluently from Hebrew school and family trips to Israel. They often switched to Hebrew when they wanted privacy from non-Jewish friends or teachers. "Tis, tis, 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 tis. Does she seem nice at least?" Eli shrugged. "Tis."
He, e, 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 e.
I guess I didn't really pay attention. Neither boy thought anything of the conversation. To them, Hebrew was like a secret code, a language that made them feel connected to something bigger, but also gave them privacy in a world where adults were always listening. What Eli didn't know was that Maria, wiping down the kitchen counter downstairs, had heard every word through the baby monitor his mother still kept in his room, just in case. Over the next 2 weeks, Maria settled into the Goldstein household. She was efficient, kind, and patient, especially with Eli, who tested boundaries like any 10-year-old would. She prepared his favorite snacks without being asked, helped him find misplaced homework, and never scolded him the way his mother did. Eli found himself actually liking Maria. She wasn't like the other housekeepers who treated him like a chore to be managed. She asked about his day, laughed at his jokes, and even helped him with his Hebrew homework when he was struggling with verb conjugations. "Your Hebrew is very good," Maria told him one afternoon as they reviewed his worksheet. "You must practice a lot. We go to Hebrew school twice a week," Eli explained. "And my family went to Israel last summer. It was amazing. We went to Jerusalem and Tel Aviv and floated in the Dead Sea." "That sounds wonderful," Maria said with a smile that seemed oddly nostalgic. Because Maria was so nice, and because she seemed to only speak English and Spanish, Eli felt completely comfortable speaking Hebrew around her. When David came over to play video games, they'd chat in Hebrew about typical kid stuff, complaints about homework, jokes about teachers, comments about classmates. One afternoon, with Maria in the next room preparing snacks, the boys were particularly animated. They'd just gotten back from Hebrew school where their teacher, Sarah, had worn a ridiculous sweater with a giant menorah on it.
He, mo,
David laughed. "Did you see her sweater today?"
we low,
"Was terrible."
emo, 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 emo.
David added conspiratorially, "My mom says Sarah is single because she scares men away with her clothes." Both boys collapsed in laughter, the kind of mean-spirited but innocent mockery that children engage in without fully understanding its cruelty. Maria appeared in the doorway with a plate of apple slices and peanut butter. Her face was neutral, but something in her eyes made Eli feel momentarily uncomfortable, though he couldn't have said why. Scene 3. The fateful joke. The incident that changed everything happened on a Thursday afternoon. Eli had had a frustrating day at school. He'd gotten a B on a math test he thought he'd aced, and his crush Sophie had chosen someone else as her partner for a science project. He was in a bad mood when he got home. Maria greeted him as always. "Hello, Eli. How was school?" "Fine," he muttered, dropping his backpack on the floor, something his mother had told him 1,000 times not to do. "Rough day?" Maria asked gently, picking up the backpack and hanging it on its hook. "I said it was fine," Eli snapped, immediately feeling bad but too proud to apologize. Maria nodded and went back to folding laundry. Eli went upstairs to his room, feeling guilty but also irritated. He pulled out his phone and called David. They talked about the day, and eventually David said something that made Eli laugh. Feeling emboldened by his friend's attention and still nursing his bad mood, Eli said something he would immediately regret.
Emo, 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 emo.
Eli said, walking out of his room and down the hallway, phone pressed to his ear. "At least Maria doesn't ask me a million questions like my mom does." Eli.
He, emo, 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 emo. Eli.
Descending the stairs laughed, a mean little laugh that he'd later be ashamed of. "Yeah, she probably doesn't even know where Israel is." He'd meant it as a throwaway joke, the kind of casual cruelty that children sometimes engage in without thinking. He didn't mean it, not really. Maria had been nothing but kind to him. But he was hurt and wanted to feel superior to someone, anyone. He rounded the corner into the kitchen and froze. Maria was standing at the counter chopping vegetables for dinner. She looked up at him, and their eyes met, and in perfect fluent Hebrew, with an accent that spoke of someone who'd actually lived in Israel, not just visited.
Emo, 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 emo.
"And I know exactly where Israel is. I lived there for 3 years. Eli felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. His phone slipped from his fingers and clattered on the tile floor. His face went from pale to bright red in seconds. His mouth opened but no sound came out. Maria set down her knife and turned to face him fully. Her expression wasn't angry, it was sad, disappointed, which somehow felt worse.
Emo, 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 emo.
Maria confirmed gently, "Yes."
Emo, 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 emo.
"Why didn't you say anything?" Maria switched to English, perhaps to make the lesson clearer. "Because I wanted to see who you really are, Eli. When people think no one understands them, they show their true selves. And I needed to know if you were kind only to people you thought were watching, or kind because that's who you are inside." Tears sprang to Eli's eyes, tears of shame and horror at being caught, but also genuine regret at hurting someone who'd been nothing but nice to him. "I didn't mean it," he whispered. "I was just mad about my day, and you took it out on someone you thought couldn't defend herself." Maria finished softly, "Someone you thought wouldn't understand. That's what bullies do, Eli." "I'm not a bully," Eli protested, even as his voice shook. "Maybe not usually," Maria agreed. "But in that moment, when you called me dumb, when you laughed about me not knowing where Israel is, that was bullying. It might not seem like much to you, just a joke with your friend. But imagine if I did that to you. Imagine if I spoke Spanish with someone and made fun of you, thinking you couldn't understand." Eli's tears spilled over. He was 10 years old, caught in the most mortifying moment of his young life, forced to confront his own cruelty. "I'm so sorry," he choked out. "I'm really, really sorry." Maria's expression softened. She grabbed a tissue from the box on the counter and handed it to him. "I know you are, and I'm going to tell you something important. This is a learning moment, not a punishment moment. You made a mistake, a hurtful one but a mistake. What matters now is what you do next. Maria pulled out a chair at the kitchen table. Sit down, Eli. Let's talk, really talk. Eli sat wiping his tears and feeling smaller than he'd ever felt in his life. Maria sat across from him, her hands folded on the table. Tell me about Israel, she said unexpectedly. Eli blinked, confused. What? You said you went last summer. Tell me about it. Still sniffling, Eli talked haltingly about the trip, the Western Wall, the markets in Jerusalem, swimming in the Mediterranean, the Masada fortress. As he talked, he began to calm down. It sounds like you loved it, Maria said. I did. It felt special, like I belonged to something bigger. Maria nodded. I felt the same way when I lived there. I was in my 20s, working on a kibbutz in the north. I learned Hebrew, made incredible friends, celebrated Shabbat with families who welcomed me even though I wasn't Jewish. It changed my life. Eli stared at her. You lived on a kibbutz. For 3 years, I picked apples, worked in the kitchen, learned to speak Hebrew fluently. When I came back to the United States, I kept studying. I can read Hebrew newspapers, watch Israeli movies without subtitles. That connection to Israel you felt. I felt it too. But you're not Jewish, Eli said, confused. No, I'm Catholic. But love and respect for a culture don't require you to be born into it. They require you to be open, curious, and respectful. She paused. Eli, do you know why I didn't tell your family I speak Hebrew? He shook his head. Because I've learned that people reveal their true character when they think no one is watching. When you speak a language you think others don't understand, you drop your guard. You say what you really think. She looked at him kindly. And I wanted to know what you really think. You must think I'm a terrible person, Eli whispered. No, Maria said firmly. I think you're a 10-year-old boy who made a mistake. Everyone does that. But Eli, you need to understand something. Every person you meet has a story, has skills and knowledge you can't see. The person who cleans your house might speak 5 languages. The person who serves your food might have a PhD. The person you walk past on the street might be someone extraordinary going through a hard time. What do I do now? Eli asked. How do I fix this? Maria thought for a moment. First you apologize to me, which you did. Second, you think about why you said what you said. Were you really commenting on me? Or were you just hurting and wanted to feel powerful? Eli considered this. I think I was mad about my day and wanted to feel better about myself. That's honest. Good. The third thing you do is choose to be better going forward, not just to me but to everyone. The next time you're tempted to make fun of someone, especially in a language you think they don't understand, remember this feeling. Remember how ashamed you are right now. Eli nodded miserably. And the fourth thing Maria said is you don't beat yourself up forever. You're 10, you're learning. This is part of growing up, making mistakes and learning from them. Are you going to tell my mom? Eli asked fearfully. Maria considered. That depends. Are you going to learn from this? Really learn? Yes, Eli said fervently. I promise. Then no, I won't tell her. This is between us. But Eli, if I hear you being unkind again to me, or to anyone else in any language, we'll be having a much different conversation. That evening, when Rachel came home and asked how the day had been, Maria simply said, very good. Eli and I had a nice talk. Eli looked at her gratefully, understanding the gift she'd given him, a chance to be better without the added humiliation of his parents' disappointment. Over the following weeks, Eli changed. He still spoke Hebrew with David, but never about people. He asked Maria about her time in Israel, genuinely curious now. He started seeing her as a person rather than just the housekeeper. When his mother complained about Maria leaving dishes in the sink one day, Eli defended her. Maybe she was busy with something important, Mom. She does a lot for us. Rachel looked at her son in surprise. That's very mature of you, Eli. One Friday afternoon, as Maria was leaving for the weekend, Eli stopped her at the door. In careful Hebrew he said, Eli's ayur, Eli's ayur, Eli's ayur.
Oh, Sheila, Sheila.
Thank you for everything you do for me, and for what you taught me. Maria smiled. Eli's, us.
Oh, Sheila.
You're a good boy, Eli. Don't forget that. Years later, when Eli was in college, He would tell this story to his friends. The most important lesson I ever learned about respect came from our housekeeper when I was 10, he'd say. She taught me that you never really know who someone is until you take the time to see them as a person. And she taught me that how you treat people when you think no one important is watching, that's who you really are. Maria continued working for the Goldsteins for 5 more years. When she finally left to pursue a degree in education, Eli, now 15, helped her pack. As she was leaving, Rachel said, "I don't know what you said to Eli that day when he was 10, but he's been a different child since then. A better person. Thank you." Maria just smiled. He taught himself. I just showed him the mirror. Have you ever said something you thought no one would understand, only to be caught? Or have you been on the receiving end, understanding words that were meant to hurt you? These moments shape us. They teach us about accountability, about respect, about seeing people as full human beings rather than background characters in our lives. Eli was lucky. He learned this lesson young from someone kind enough to teach rather than shame him. Not everyone gets that gift. What's a moment that changed how you saw people? What lesson did you learn about respect when you were young? Share your story below, because we all have them. Those moments when we realize the world is bigger and more complex than we thought.